right, it is another edition of the Rivals.com basketball podcast, Florida Man and Friends. And if you stuck with us this long, congratulations. This week, we're joined by Illinois head coach Brad Underwood, an old friend of mine. I mean, we go back a ways now, Brad.
Gosh, I went to Manhattan in 2006 when Huggins got the job. So at least then.
Actually, I showed up in 07, the year after. My first year was Frank's first year. So, right. But I'm gone now. Now I'm in Miami. You're in Champaign. How are things up there, man? I mean, this is all got to be insane for you, obviously, with the circumstances. How are you guys doing as far as practice goes and keeping guys healthy and everything like that?
Yeah, knock on wood, we've been really good. Our university has been at the forefront of COVID, of testing, really since the onset. And we've, if you can imagine this, we test all of our students, not just our athletes, all of our students twice a week here. So we've got our own testing. It's a saliva test. So we've been testing since early June.
So on the saliva test, how fast do the results come back on those things?
Yeah, we're getting them back now in a few hours.
Wow.
Their PCR, the league when we do for the Big Ten now is a nasal, and we get that one back in 15, 20 minutes. And we do that. We test every day in the Big Ten. But we've been testing so long here at the University of Illinois that it's almost second nature to test. So, knock on wood, we haven't been excluded from the goings on. We've had guys have it. We've had some guys that have had to go to contact tracing and so on and so forth. But here in the not too recent past, we've been pretty solid, pretty good, able to practice. And now as we get going to games, we've probably got a little different concern because you're worried about your opponents as well.
I want to go back to last year now because, you guys had a breakthrough year. You won 20 games. It looked like you guys were on your way to the NCAA tournament. And then, when did you was there a point where – because at first, I'll be the first one to tell you, when this all first started, I kind of thought in the back of my head, okay, we'll be through this in a month. They'll play the tournament. About a week later, I was like, uh-oh. When did it hit you that your season was over?
Yeah, we were practicing at Hinkle Fieldhouse. We had a double bye in the Big Ten tournament, so didn't play until Friday. And we're at Hinkle Fieldhouse practicing. And that's the night on Wednesday night, Fred Hoiberg had gotten sick. And, they had fans at the game. And so then the decision was made that hey, maybe the Gobert from Utah. And now you start to see NBA games being canceled. And all of a sudden now you're like, oh, this is getting to be pretty impactful. And so at practice the next morning, my sports information director, Derek Burson's like, yes, both teams took to court. There's no fans, but we're playing. And, 10 minutes later, he's like, they pulled him off the court. And I knew when they shut down the Big Ten tournament, more than likely the NCAA tournament was done. We fought like crazy on the way home, coaches calling each other, just trying to get a delay, not a permanent cancellation of the tournament, just delay it. Kind of what you're saying. Everybody thought, well, a month, maybe this is over. And, it becomes May Madness instead of March Madness. And, but obviously this has turned into, month 9 now or whatever it is. And we're still fighting it. So it was hard. It was emotional. We were playing as well as anybody in the country. We felt like we had the makings of a team that could make a deep, deep run. And when you've been building like we have here, I felt terrible. I had a sick feeling for my seniors. And those guys aren't going to be able to go through that.
Like you said, you guys were playing great. It had been a rough couple years leading up to it. And finally the breakthrough happens. And then an act of the universe that nobody could ever imagine shuts you down.
Yeah, it's the 100-year pandemic, and you're disappointed. Then I got angry. I was mad because, it's I wanted it for those guys and to have that experience of playing in the tournament and then knowing that, doggone, we were playing good. We were guarding. We were one of the top rebounding teams. We didn't turn it over. We had guards who were closers. And all of a sudden, it's just taken away that quick. And then you have to, almost slap yourself and say, okay, this is a real life issue. This isn't just basketball and a game. This is, people are dying. And, so I think there was some valuable lessons in there for our players as well. But here we are, getting ready to start another season. And in one way, it seems like it was just yesterday. And in another sense, it seems like it was forever ago since we played a game. But we're 5 days away, 6 days away, whatever it is now, and excited to just be talking about playing the game again.
Let's talk about those games. You won 20 games last year, as I mentioned. How's this team different? Going to look a little different than last year. Obviously, you have Kofi back. We can talk about him in a second. What's the difference in 2020 Illinois as opposed to 2019 Illinois?
Well, I think for the first time since we've been here, we're older. I'm not going to say we're old, but we're older.
No, you and I are old.
And that's been one of our biggest problems. We had a breakthrough at the end of year 2. We had started to win some games. We beat Michigan State, who was ranked. We'd gone on the road and beat Ohio State. And so we started to build then. And then last year, early, we were really a roller coaster. We were up and down. And finally, it just kind of sunk in around Christmas time. And we started playing better basketball. Kofi, who was a freshman, became a little more consistent. And, at the end of the year, he wasn't playing like a freshman anymore. But this group is maybe a little more talented. We have 3 freshmen that are coming in that I'm really, really excited about. They're all going to impact us and help us. And then you've got Trent Frazier, DeMonte Williams, guys who have been basically starters since day one. Throw in Kofi, throw in Georgie Bishanishvili, throw in Io DeSumo. And now you've got experience. And for the first time, Rob, the one thing that's happening is I don't have to lead every day in practice. Our culture is set, it's established how we're going to play, how we're going to do things, and it's the veterans doing that. And, up until this point, we've had to fight for everything as coaches to establish what our identity is, what our culture is about. And now it's, Io DeSumo and, diving on the floor for a loose ball, or Trent Frazier taking a charge. And this is how we do things, guys. And, we just had an inter squad the other day, and, there's Io DeSumo an hour and 15 minutes before it out there in a full lather, and he's getting on 2 freshmen. He's like, where are you guys at? This isn't a high school game where you play after the JV. You learn this is how we prepare here. And that stuff's invaluable.
Were you, 2 things on Kofi. Were you surprised you got him back? It seemed like there was some, obviously he declared, decided to come back. Did you think he was gone?
Well, I don't know if I ever thought one way or the other. I want guys to make great business choices.
Sure.
And I think the one thing that was great for him, he got to interview. He got to ask a lot of questions. Kofi's a very well-spoken young man, and took it upon himself to be a guy that said, hey, let me find out what people are really thinking. Let me find out where I'm at, and gain some true insight. And I think one of the things that he found out was he's got to be consistent. And if you're going to go play at that next level, you better dominate every night.
Yep.
And if you're not dominating college, what makes you think you can go to that level and play? And yet there's a business decision that's involved in that. He took all the information from the from the advisory committee on where they thought he might go. So you look at things and you evaluate, and he did that, and we're excited he's back.
How's he different this year? You said he needs to take that next step. He needs to dominate. Are people going to see a more developed version of him? And what parts of his game are a little bit different now than they were a year ago? Because I think there are going to be a lot of eyes on him, obviously. after the year he had.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And I think one of the challenges, Rob, was he missed a lot of the spring. He was home in New York, and we couldn't work out, in the early part of the summer. He's heavier, and that's a good thing. He came in at 310. Last year he played at 285. Right now he's 297, but he's got less body fat. And the one thing that was with Kofi that was unique, great body, great physique, big, but he wasn't ultra strong, and he fatigued. He got tired early. And now we're seeing a 297-pound guy with hardly any body fat, and his conditioning is night and day from where it was a year ago at this time. When you factor that in with his nothing's new anymore. Now he's a veteran. He's seen it. And the Big Ten, got a lot of publicity last year for having great guards. We had great big people, and there was a lot of different ones, from Luka Garza to Stick Smith to the big guys at Michigan, and it was you go right on down the list. Everybody had size, and it was a different animal every night. Oturu at Minnesota, everything was new to him. Okay, how can I hedge on a ball screen and get back and close out to a three-point shooter? And this guy drives it. He'll have that experience now. With experience comes confidence. So we're seeing that every day in practice.
I wanted to address the talent on your roster too, because you and I were both in Manhattan, Kansas at the same time. Great place, but we know there aren't a lot of recruiting advantages there. You've been at SFA, middle of nowhere, Texas, Oklahoma State, not exactly near a major basketball hub. You end up in Champaign, and all of a sudden you've got Chicago to draw from. Did you feel like you had fallen into a pile of gold when you got there? Did you know how to react?
Well, and Rob, I spent 10 years at Western Illinois University from 93 through 03. Mm-hmm. And Western's a low to mid-major program. And when I was there, I understood, high school basketball in this state is no different than what football is in Florida and Texas.
Sure.
It's the same. It's got that same mentality, and it's so powerful in the high schools. Great coaches, great players, and you could go into any corner nook of this state and find a Division I player, and that never left. The imprint it left on me was so important. It never left my memory, and that's what made Illinois great. You go back to the Flying Illini in '89, all Illini people. Things are different now a little bit from the standpoint that, a lot of kids go to prep schools, or they'll go to a different a different place and play. But it's still really, really good. And great coaching, and it's important, and there's tremendous value in that for me. But, to get Ayo Dosunmu, to get Adam Miller, we've been very selective. And yet also understand that, to fit our puzzle, we may have to go elsewhere. We've gone all around the world, and we've gone to New York and, wherever, and California. So, but yeah, Chicago, the state of Illinois has a lot of good players, and we're always going to try to keep those kids at home.
What's it been like for you recruiting in the age of COVID? You guys obviously there was no live period. There was no grassroots. So what are you doing all day? You're just watching live streams and hoping to get lucky? Like, how are you finding new people to put on the Illinois radar right now?
Yeah, that's it. There's no doubt there's a lot of it. Again, I think one of the things I'm really fortunate, great staff. And we've been together now. Orlando Antigua, Chin Coleman, Stephen Gentry, who's been with me at Stephen F. Austin, Oklahoma State. He left for a couple of years to go to Gonzaga. Now back, and those guys are all good, and they all know what we're about. And so, at the end of last year, we had a ton of young kids on campus. That ended up being very important for us. And as we're seeing in today's culture, I think we're now, we are, we're not, I don't think, we're dead till April 15th.
Yep.
And now it's about being creative. Now it's still about trying to build relationships, and we're doing it through Zooms. We're doing it through different digital ways in terms of okay, what's a campus visit like? And we're having to do it, through 3D cameras and figuring out ways to show off what you have when they can't come and visit, and we can't go see them. It's really challenging. I was a junior college coach, as you know, for a long time. A lot of this is very similar to junior college recruiting. You start diving into a lot of the background people to really find out about that young man, because you don't see how they react with teammates now in person. You're watching on stream, you only see what the camera shows.
Yep.
And you don't see how they interact. And character is a big part of what we do. We have a saying, character over characters. And so we're having to dig deeper and talk to more people, and that's okay. But I got a great staff. They're great evaluators. They know what we're about here. And so that's a real positive.
You guys signed one during the early period. He is signed, so we can talk about him, correct?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Luke. How did you guys find him? How did Luke Goode come on the radar for Illinois?
Yeah, Stephen Gentry saw him real early, and one of the things that we knew we needed, and it was our downfall last year, was we struggled shooting the basketball, and one of the challenges in this conference is you get a lot of perimeter players, and I'll for old school definition, I'll use the small forwards.
Positionless basketball under Brad Underwood, as I understand.
But they're 6'7", 6'8", and they can space the floor and shoot it. And playing with 6'3", 6'4" guys isn't always the most conducive thing. So we needed a size with that could really shoot it. Luke can do so many other things. He's played at the point. He's a terrific passer. He's got a body that's just going to develop. He's a football player until this year. So he was a quarterback. He thinks the game. He sees it. High IQ. He's a gym rat. He's that typical Illinois, Indiana, just kid that lives in the gym and gets better. And he's got a body that's still growing. He's not done growing. I just watched some stuff on him a couple of nights ago, and he's been training really hard since he's not playing football, and you can see his shoulders starting to develop. And here's a kid who's going to be 6'8", and he's going to be 225, 230 before it's over with, and you put that with his athleticism and his jump shot, and you're going to have a heck of a player.
I kind of look at that staff from K-State when you were there. It's amazing where they've gone. You've got Pastrana as an assistant at Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Matt Figger's the head coach at Austin Peay. They're looking like a good team. And obviously Frank's at South Carolina, and he's got some guys with him. Did you know that staff was special when you were there? It seems like it's kind of outperformed people's expectations, I think. And you at Illinois.
Yeah, it depends whose expectations. I think that's the one thing that, we all got along so well. And I think one of the things that was great about Huggins and Frank is nobody cared. We all wanted to win, and nobody cared who did what. And one year we flipped the offense and changed it, and Frank let me do it.
Yeah, I remember.
And Fig was Fig's as good a basketball guy as there is, and creative and especially when it comes to ball screen offense. And so, we just fit, and I knew it'd be a matter of time. And, obviously Frank's had team in the Final Four. He's got a great team this year. And, Pastrana was with me at Stephen F. Austin and did a great job there recruiting, and now is with Mike at Oklahoma State. So yeah, it's a staff that, Patrick Schulte was a manager at K-State. He was with me as a video coordinator.
Yeah, he's in Louisiana, right?
Yeah. Yes.
That's right.
So, it's been fun to take some of those guys and watch them and see them grow and develop. And, Pastrana's next in line. He'll become a head coach and he'll be great. And he's done a terrific job recruiting.
Well, one of these days I'm going to have to make you the go-between between Frank and I to get him in this chair, because I think my man still holds a grudge. I don't think things are right. I'm telling you, I reached out to him when I got this job, and I still don't think things are right with him.
Well, there's no better human being than Frank.
I love him. I'm ready to squash the beef. Frank, on the other hand, is the one.
Well, I'll let you two handle that out. I'll stay right where I'm at in my seat in Champaign, but no, I mean, Frank's a guy, man. I love that guy. I talk to him all the time, and Frank's got so much wisdom on so many different issues other than basketball, and it's fun to pick his brain, and
he's a guy that's been through a lot now. I've always admired him.
You really benefit as a player playing from him because he's so insightful. He's very thoughtful, and we were talking the other day about the Elite 8 team.
Yeah.
And how I watched that game.
The double overtime one?
Yeah, a couple months ago with Xavier. And I forgot how much depth we had. Rodney Magruder.
I know.
I mean, hardly played in that game. He's the guy that's had the best pro career. But it's really cool to know and see those guys. And I have so much respect for Frank, and it was great to be a part of it at K-State then.
Now, it has been a long time since I saw you, but the last time I saw you, and you knew I was going to bring this up, was actually on TV at a Cubs game. What happened? That was one of the greatest renditions of "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" I've ever seen in my life. You watched it back?
Unfortunately, I have. and Rob, the one thing that there's certain things that are bucket list things.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I don't get nervous about a lot.
Sure.
But I'm not allowed to sing in church. Every time I open my mouth in church singing, I get an elbow in the ribs about I'm embarrassing. My kids are embarrassed. My wife's embarrassed. And so, but what's interesting about that is, throwing out first pitch, that's easy. That's something really athletic. You can do that. But you stand up there and they take you up an inning and a half early, and you meet the organist. And that he was approaching 2,500 games there. The guy's been there forever, and so the first thing he says to you is, "Hey, relax. There's nothing you can do to make this song sound good." And I'm like,
right.
and I'm like, wow. He goes, "I'm just going to give you one piece of advice. It's played much slower than you're going to want to sing it." And I'm like, oh boy, I'm trying to make sure I don't forget the words and this and that. Well, then they put you in the press box. And as soon as that inning's over, and in my case, the Reds had rallied. The Cubs were down 9-0. They rallied to tie, or 8-0, 8 or 9-0. They rally, they tie it. And then in the top half of the inning, the Reds scored a couple. So now they're in there like, hey, you got to get the crowd fired up, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, hell, I just want to remember the words. And so they introduce you, and they start playing. Well, in the press box, you can't hear it. It's just literally played out to the field. You don't hear it. I mean, it's an old press box.
Sure.
You can't hear it. So I'm like, oh, hell, and I step forward. And Rob, honest to goodness, it's one of those, oh, shit moments. It is like there's 40,000 people, and they're turned and they're staring at you, and they've all got their cameras on, and you are pathetic at singing.
So does it click in your head that, oh, this is going to be an internet thing?
Oh,
Who's
hell
the first person that texts you? Once this is over, and boy, do you stink up the place. Who's the first text message that says, Brad, man?
Well, I think my first thought was, okay, how come I didn't have more beers before? Because I see why people, and I see why people have a few before they go do that.
Yeah, you got to loosen up.
Yes. But, and then at some point, they said, hey, just make sure you wave it in front of the crowd a little bit and get them into it. But no, it's a bucket list thing. I was nervous as heck. It lasts for a couple minutes and you're done. And
what did your wife say to you about it?
She said, thank God that's over. He said, thank God she's in the press box with me with my daughters. And she goes, one of my daughters made a comment. She goes, well, I don't think you embarrassed us too bad.
Hey, there you go. That's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, that's all you can ask for.
I got to tell you, when I saw it, I almost fell out of my chair laughing.
I do know this. I was not very good, but there has been worse.
That's true.
There has been a lot worse.
All right, 2 more things before I let you go. We've been doing this with these 2 questions with every coach we've had. It's been fun. The first thing is, we like to call it almost had him, where we had Bruce in your chair a little bit ago, and then we had the head coach from Howard, and just kind of talking about recruits that you just missed on, that ended up being good players that whether it be at Illinois or at K-State or even at Oklahoma State. Are there guys that you look back on and you're like, man, we really let him get away at the last moment?
Man, I think there's so many of those that I don't even know where to start.
Just throw one out. We talked about it.
But, I mean, I think you remember the ones that and I always go back, like Perry Ellis.
Mm-hmm. From Wichita.
Okay.
You were at K-State.
And recruited him for 4 years. And we were still behind. And I think he'd been on KU's campus, a few hundred times even before we got there, but it's one of those, like, you feel like you're right there.
Yeah. And
you're like, and you invest so much. Those are the ones you remember when you invest so much time and so much effort. And, it was like, it seemed like every time I turned around, I was on the phone with Perry, or I was on the phone with his mom. And then they go to another school. And of course he's, a 1,500 point scorer, whatever he is, and has a great career. And, you're like, oh my gosh. And, and I think there's, I look back and I thought we had a chance to get Carson Edwards at Stephen F. Austin. He ends up signing with Purdue. I mean, he might have been the 3rd best player on his high school team. And there we were right down the road. And all of a sudden this kid goes to Purdue, and then I come here and literally he put 40 on us.
So how's that happen with him? You guys were in on him early, and then Purdue comes in late?
Yeah, he set behind De'Aaron Fox on his AAU team.
Oh man!
And he's an hour and a half down the road, and they had another kid on that team who we were recruiting as well, who ended up going to Boise.
Okay.
And so we're down there, and I mean, just Nowheresville, Eastern Texas, area, and I think we're getting we got a chance to get a good player, and now he's at Purdue, and then I come to Illinois and he throws 40 on us, and and then sets all these records, and now he's a pro, and man, he would have been pretty doggone good in the Southland Conference, I think.
Yeah, A, he would have been good, and B, he would have been out of your way, right?
I mean, there's no question, but there's so many of them that you just sit there and we've had them here, and they're still playing, so I don't want to talk about those guys that I may come back and haunt me, but that's all part of it. And I think I've learned to flip the switch really quick.
On to the next one.
On to the next one.
All right, the second one is, let's say Brad Underwood is the king of the NCAA for a day. You are the rules committee. You get to change one rule. What's the rule you change it?
Man, that one's not easy. I don't know if I can say one rule. I would like to have uniformity.
In what way?
All through basketball. I think we're the only country in the world who our kids don't grow up playing on the same court with the same 3-point line, with the same shot clock. I would love to just see uniformity that way. So that's a bad answer to your question. I mean, the worst rule change of all time that affected me was when they got rid of the 5-second closely guarded rule.
Oh yeah.
That impacted, and I mean, I don't know what this says about officials, but they said, they didn't want him to count to 5.
That impacts guys like you and Frank and teams. I mean, your teams play pretty similar in that defensive style.
Yeah, my first year at SFA, we had 29 of them.
Yeah.
5-second counts. And when you denied wings and overplayed, I mean, all of a sudden that's impacting a style of play, and to just drop that on you when you've recruited to it was different. But I think we're in a good place. I just at some point, the NBA plays by quarters, high schools play by quarters, we play halves. There's just there's so many different shot clocks. High schools, states don't have shot clocks. I just like us to all kids to be able to grow up and learn to play one way and be able to adapt that way.
And it also helps you evaluate kids, right? It's hard to evaluate kids across shot clock rules and 3-point line rules and everything like that.
It's little things. I mean, we've got freshmen in our program right now that never played with a shot clock.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I mean, all of a sudden, they don't know how to act when the shot clock hits 8, or they don't even know where to look. And so, it's just different. But, I think that would be, if I was I would try to make sure we all could play, whether 24, 30 seconds, whatever, but all by the same rules.
Well, Brad, I appreciate having you on. And once we're available to hit the road again, I'm sure I will see you more around, and we'll go get dinner or something. It'll be nice to catch up.
Look forward to it, my man. Look forward to it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.